The 1960s birthed some of the most innovative automotive engineering ever conceived. But did you know Rover's legendary V8 engine was actually bought from an American refrigerator company for just $5? Or that one European manufacturer used aerospace techniques to build a car that could withstand a 20-foot drop? Let's dive into the 13 most brilliantly engineered cars of the decade. Number 13, 1961 Jaguar E-Type. The Jaguar E-Type didn't just stun the world with its beauty, it revolutionized sports car engineering with technology straight from the racetrack. When it debuted in 1961, this sleek British icon packed Le Mans-winning race car DNA into a production vehicle anyone with deep enough pockets could buy. What made the E-Type an engineering marvel was its monocoque construction, a technique borrowed from aircraft design. Instead of the traditional body-on-frame approach, Jaguar engineers created a unitary structure where the body itself was the main load-bearing element. This slashed weight while increasing rigidity, the holy grail of sports car design. The front subframe carried the engine and front suspension, while the rest was a lightweight, incredibly strong tub. The real genius was under the skin. The E-Type featured fully independent suspension all around when most competitors still used solid rear axles. Its ingenious rear setup used 4 trailing arms and 2 transverse links, providing both precise handling and a surprisingly comfortable ride. Inboard rear disc brakes reduced unsprung weight, further improving road holding. Enzo Ferrari himself called it the most beautiful car ever made, but its engineering was equally impressive. Road and Track declared, "It's not just gorgeous, it's a mechanical masterpiece that makes everything else seem antiquated." The E-Type could hit 150 mph when most family cars struggled to reach 70, and it did this while costing half as much as Ferraris or Aston Martins with similar performance. Even after 60 years, automotive engineers still study the E-Type as a perfect marriage of form and function. One former Jaguar engineer later remarked, "We didn't know we were creating a legend. We were just solving problems in the most elegant way possible." Number 12, 1963 Rover P6. The 1963 Rover P6 was a mid-size luxury sedan that completely rewrote the rulebook on how to engineer a safe, sophisticated car. While American manufacturers were focusing on style and horsepower, Rover's engineers were quietly creating one of the most forward-thinking vehicles of the decade. What made the P6 revolutionary was its innovative base unit construction. Unlike traditional cars with a separate chassis and body, or even modern unibody designs, the P6 featured a strong central skeleton structure with non-load-bearing outer panels. This meant if you damaged the exterior, repairs were simple and inexpensive. Just unbolt the damaged panel and replace it. This construction method also created a remarkably rigid passenger safety cell decades before crash testing became standard. The suspension was pure genius. The front used a Didion tube setup with horizontal coil springs mounted against the bulkhead. This allowed engineers to create a crush space in the front of the car for improved crash protection. The entire engine bay was designed so the engine would slide under the car in a frontal impact rather than into the passenger compartment. Car and Driver called it the most significant new car since the Mini, praising its vault-like solidity and innovative engineering. Road and Track marveled at how it combined sports car handling with luxury car comfort, a balance few had achieved before. Perhaps most impressive was the P6's longevity. The design was so forward-thinking that it remained in production with only minor changes until 1977, an eternity in automotive terms. Rover's chief engineer later revealed, "We were given free rein to create the safest, most advanced car possible without worrying about tradition." That freedom produced something truly special. Number 11, 1967 NSU Row80. The 1967 NSU Row80 was so far ahead of its time that it took the automotive world nearly 30 years to catch up. This German sedan packed more innovation into one vehicle than most manufacturers managed in a decade, earning it the prestigious European Car of the Year award upon its release. At the heart of the Row80 was its revolutionary Wankel rotary engine, a compact, smooth power plant that produced 115 horsepower from just 995 cc of displacement. The engine was so small and lightweight that engineers could mount it well behind the front axle for near-perfect weight distribution. Paired with front-wheel drive, this created handling characteristics that were decades ahead of competitors. The Row80's aerodynamic design achieved a drag coefficient of just 0.35, a figure that remained impressive well into the 1990s. Its sleek, wind-tunnel-tested shape featured flush glass, integrated bumpers, and a sloping fastback profile when most cars still had upright, boxy designs. The large glass area and thin pillars created exceptional visibility, another safety feature ahead of its time. Inside, the Row80 featured a semi-automatic transmission with an innovative vacuum-operated clutch system. The driver simply moved the shift lever, and the electronics handled the clutch operation, a precursor to today's automated manual transmissions. Automotor and Sport called it a glimpse into the automotive future, while Road and Track declared it the most significant sedan design since the Citroen DS. Unfortunately, early reliability issues with the rotary engine's apex seals damaged the Row80's reputation. NSU responded with a remarkable warranty program, replacing engines for free, but the damage was done. The true vindication came decades later when features pioneered by the Row80, aerodynamic design, front-wheel drive, semi-automatic transmissions, and weight distribution prioritization became industry standards. As one former NSU engineer noted, "We weren't wrong about the engineering. We were just 30 years too early." Number 10, 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado. The 1966 Oldsmobile Toronado accomplished what Detroit engineers had considered impossible: building a powerful, full-size American luxury car with front-wheel drive. This revolutionary coupe didn't just challenge engineering conventions, it obliterated them with bold solutions to seemingly insurmountable problems. The biggest engineering hurdle was how to send 385 horsepower from a massive 425 cubic inch V8 through the front wheels without creating catastrophic torque steer or drivetrain failures. Oldsmobile's solution was the ingenious unitized power package, which placed the engine and transmission side by side rather than in line. A silent chain transfer drive, the largest ever used in an automobile at 2 inches wide with 186 links, connected the engine to the transmission. The front suspension was equally innovative, using torsion bars and specially designed constant velocity joints that could handle the Toronado's immense power. The entire drivetrain assembly sat on a unique subframe with 6 rubber isolation mounts to eliminate vibration and harshness. Car and Driver called it the most significant engineering breakthrough since the Corvette 810, while Motor Trend named it Car of the Year, praising its revolutionary engineering wrapped in a stunningly original design. The Toronado's flat floor and absence of a transmission tunnel created interior space unmatched by other vehicles of similar exterior dimensions. What's most impressive is the Toronado's reliability. Despite its complexity and completely new engineering approach, it proved remarkably durable. Many Toronados logged over 100,000 miles with minimal issues, unheard of for such an innovative vehicle in the 1960s. Former GM engineer Bill Mitchell later revealed, "We knew we'd either create the biggest engineering disaster in GM history or revolutionize American car design. Thankfully, it was the latter." The Toronado's UPP design would later form the basis for GM's front-wheel drive systems for decades to come. Number 9, 1964 Porsche 911. The 1964 Porsche 911 wasn't just an evolution of the 356. It was an engineering revolution that created the template for the modern sports car. While its distinctive silhouette gets all the attention, it's what's underneath that made the original 911 an engineering masterpiece that's still in production nearly 60 years later. The 911's most revolutionary aspect was its flat-six engine, a compact power plant mounted behind the rear axle. This air-cooled marvel weighed just 400 pounds, yet produced 130 horsepower from 2.0 liters, exceptional for the era. The engine's hemispherical combustion chambers, forged aluminum pistons, and sodium-filled valves were racing technology adapted for road use, creating an engine that could rev to 7,000 RPM reliably when most competitors couldn't pass 5,000. Engineer Ferdinand Piëch, Ferdinand Porsche's grandson, insisted on using a 5-speed transaxle when most sports cars made do with 4 speeds. This allowed closer gear ratios for better acceleration while still providing a comfortable cruising gear, a balance few sports cars of the era achieved. The 911's suspension was another engineering triumph. While the rear engine layout created inherent handling challenges, Porsche's solution was remarkably elegant. Semi-trailing arms at the rear with torsion bars all around. This provided both excellent handling and impressive ride comfort when most sports cars sacrificed one for the other. Road & Track called it the finest production sports car we have ever tested, while Car and Driver declared, the 911 will become the new standard against which all sporting machines must be judged. Even more impressive was the car's durability. Early 911s could be driven flat out for hours without issue when many competitors would overheat or break down. Porsche engineer Hans Mezger later revealed, "We were told it was impossible to make an air-cooled engine with this performance and reliability. Proving that wrong was our greatest achievement." The 911's engineering was so sound that its basic layout remained unchanged for over 30 years. Number 8. 1961 Lincoln Continental. The 1961 Lincoln Continental wasn't just a design masterpiece. It was an engineering triumph that saved Lincoln from extinction through ruthless dedication to quality and simplicity. After disastrous reliability problems with previous models, Lincoln engineers were given a clean sheet and a clear directive. Build the best engineered American luxury car ever made, no matter the cost. The result was a complete rejection of the chrome-laden excess that defined late 50s luxury cars. Instead, Lincoln created a clean, architectural design with engineering to match. The Continental's monocoque construction used thicker gauge steel than any other American car, with additional reinforcements creating a vault-like structure that eliminated the rattles and squeaks common in body-on-frame luxury cars of the era. The Continental's quality control process was unprecedented. Each car underwent a 189-point inspection before delivery, and engines were bench-tested for 12 hours before installation. The air conditioning system, among the most effective ever designed, was tested in 120-degree heat chambers to ensure flawless operation in any climate. Perhaps most remarkable were the suicide doors, a design feature that required exceptional engineering. Lincoln strengthened the B-pillars and door latches far beyond industry standards, creating what Road & Track called possibly the most rigid four-door convertible ever built. The doors closed with the solid thunk of a bank vault, a deliberate engineering touch that communicated quality. The Continental suspension used front and rear stabilizer bars, variable rate springs, and hydraulic shock absorbers tuned specifically for American roads. This created what Car and Driver described as a ride that perfectly balances comfort and control, something European luxury cars haven't mastered. Lincoln's engineering gamble paid off spectacularly. The Continental's warranty claims dropped 75% compared to previous models, and it became the car of choice for presidents, executives, and celebrities. As Lincoln's chief engineer later noted, "We weren't building a car to last through the warranty period. We were building one to last forever." Number 7. 1961 Citroen DS. The 1961 Citroen DS wasn't just ahead of its time, it was from another dimension entirely. While American manufacturers were adding bigger fins and more chrome, Citroen created a technological masterpiece so advanced that many of its innovations still haven't been widely adopted more than 60 years later. The DS's hydro-pneumatic suspension remains its most revolutionary feature. Instead of conventional springs and shock absorbers, the system used high-pressure hydraulic fluid and nitrogen-filled spheres to create a self-leveling suspension that maintained the same ride height regardless of load. The result was a ride quality that Road & Track described as like floating on a magic carpet while maintaining exceptional handling. This same hydraulic system powered the steering, brakes, and even the clutch in semi-automatic models. The power brakes were so advanced, they varied pressure based on how much weight was on each wheel. The front disc brakes, rare for 1961, were mounted inboard near the transmission to reduce unsprung weight and improve handling further. The DS's aerodynamic body wasn't just for show, it reduced fuel consumption and wind noise while improving high-speed stability. Its low drag coefficient of 0.36 wouldn't be matched by mainstream cars for decades. The headlights even turned with the steering wheel on some models, illuminating corners before the car entered them, a feature that wouldn't become common until the 2000s. Auto journalist L.J.K. Setright called it the most comfortable car in the world, while philosopher Roland Barthes described it as a humanized art, equivalent to the great Gothic cathedrals. Even competing manufacturers were stunned. Rolls-Royce bought several DSs to study their suspension technology. What's most remarkable is the DS's reliability despite its complexity. The hydraulic system, once properly maintained, proved extremely durable. As one Citroen engineer later revealed, "We designed it to function perfectly on rough colonial roads with minimal maintenance. That's why even today, they still work when properly cared for." Number 6, 1968 Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL 6.3. The 1968 Mercedes-Benz 300 SEL 6.3 was the world's first true super sedan, created through a brilliant act of engineering rebellion that almost never happened. This unassuming luxury car packed the heart of a supercar with the comfort of a limousine, redefining what a four-door automobile could be. The 6.3's creation is legendary. Mercedes engineer Eric Waxenberger secretly took the massive 6.3-liter V8 from the 600 limousine and shoehorned it into the smaller W109 sedan body without management approval. When company executives discovered his unauthorized project, they were prepared to shut it down until they drove it. The sedan's blistering performance, 0-60 in 6.5 seconds when most family cars took 12-15 seconds, and impeccable refinement convinced them to put it into production. What made the 6.3 an engineering masterpiece wasn't just the big engine, but how Mercedes adapted everything else to handle the power. The air suspension was completely retuned with additional accumulators to maintain the plush ride while improving handling. The braking system received larger discs, reinforced calipers, and a sophisticated pressure regulator that varied braking force based on vehicle load and deceleration. The transmission required extensive modification to handle the V8's 300 lb-ft of torque, with strengthened components and a special fluid cooling system. Even the differential was upgraded with a heat exchanger to prevent overheating during high-speed cruising. Road and Track called it the greatest sedan in the world, while Car and Driver declared it had the presence of a Rolls-Royce, the performance of a Ferrari, and the engineering excellence only Mercedes can provide. The 6.3 could reach 137 mph and out-accelerate most sports cars while carrying 5 passengers in supreme comfort. What's most impressive is the 6.3's durability. Despite its complexity and high performance, many examples have accumulated over 300,000 miles with proper maintenance. As Waxenberger later noted, "We didn't just build a fast car. We built a fast car that would still be running perfectly 30 years later." Number 5, 1966 Jensen FF. The 1966 Jensen FF silently revolutionized automotive safety, with technology so advanced it wouldn't become mainstream for another 30 years. This British Grand Tourer was the world's first non-off-road production car with four-wheel drive and the first with anti-lock brakes, a combination that made it the safest high-performance car of its era by a massive margin. The FF's four-wheel drive system was an engineering breakthrough, developed by Harry Ferguson Research. The FF stood for Ferguson Formula. Unlike crude 4WD systems in off-road vehicles, the FF used a sophisticated center differential with a fluid coupling that could vary torque between axles depending on available traction. This created a car that remained stable and controllable in conditions that would send other high-performance vehicles sliding off the road. Even more revolutionary was the Dunlop Maxarette anti-lock braking system, adapted from aircraft technology. While primitive compared to modern systems, it prevented wheel lockup and dramatically shortened stopping distances, particularly on slippery surfaces. Each front wheel had its own electronic control unit and mechanical sensor that could detect impending lockup and momentarily reduce brake pressure. The FF's chassis was equally innovative, using a combination of steel tube frames and steel panels to create an extremely rigid structure. The independent front suspension used coil springs and wishbones, while the rear employed a live axle with Watts linkage for improved handling, an ingenious compromise between performance and practicality. Autocar magazine called it the safest high-performance car in the world, while Road and Track praised its remarkable stability in conditions that would defeat lesser vehicles. The FF could accelerate from 0 to 60 in 8 seconds and reach 130 mph, impressive figures for the era, while maintaining control in weather conditions that would force other sports cars to stay in the garage. The FF's commercial failure, only 320 were built, didn't diminish its engineering significance. As Ferguson engineer Tony Rolt later reflected, "We created the template for the modern all-weather performance car. It just took the rest of the industry 30 years to catch up." Number 4. 1965 Rover BRM gas turbine. The 1965 Rover BRM gas turbine race car wasn't just a technological curiosity, it was a glimpse into an automotive future that almost happened. This revolutionary machine, a collaboration between Rover and BRM Formula One team, remains the only gas turbine-powered car ever to officially finish the 24 Hours of Le Mans. The car's heart was its jet turbine engine, a modified aircraft auxiliary power unit adapted for automotive use. Unlike conventional piston engines, the turbine had just one moving part, a shaft with compressor and turbine wheels at either end. It produced 150 horsepower while running at a mind-boggling 55,000 RPM, channeled through a conventional gearbox to the rear wheels. What made the Rover BRM truly remarkable was how engineers overcame the turbine's inherent challenges. Gas turbines typically suffer from poor throttle response and high fuel consumption, but Rover's engineers created a variable geometry intake system that dramatically improved responsiveness. The fuel consumption remained high, about 5 mpg during racing, but the ability to run on almost any combustible liquid meant the car could theoretically use kerosene, diesel, or even vegetable oil. The Rover BRM's other advantage was its incredible reliability. With minimal vibration and no reciprocating parts, the turbine ran smoothly for the entire 24-hour race without issues. The car finished 10th overall at Le Mans in 1965, covering 2,470 miles at an average speed of 98.8 mph, a remarkable achievement for such experimental technology. Autosport magazine called it the most significant technical achievement at Le Mans since the first disc brake victory, while famous driver Graham Hill, who piloted the car with Jackie Stewart, noted, "It's like driving the future, smooth, quiet, and utterly alien compared to piston engines." Although production gas turbine cars never materialized due to emissions regulations and fuel economy concerns, the technology demonstrated at Le Mans influenced hybrid systems decades later. As one Rover engineer later reflected, "We were probably 50 years too early, but we proved the concept was viable." Today's electric hybrid systems actually solve many of the problems we were working on. Number 3. 1967 Mazda Cosmo Sport. The 1967 Mazda Cosmo Sport wasn't just Mazda's first sports car. It was an engineering moonshot that nearly bankrupted the company, but eventually transformed it into a global automotive powerhouse. This tiny Japanese manufacturer bet everything on rotary engine technology, when even huge companies like GM had tried and failed to make it work. The Cosmo's heart was its twin-rotor Wankel engine, a revolutionary power plant with no pistons, valves, connecting rods, or camshafts. Instead, triangular rotors spun within epitrochoidal housings, creating combustion chambers that expanded and contracted as the rotors turned. This design allowed the tiny 982cc engine to produce 110 horsepower, more than double what conventional engines of similar displacement could manage. What made the Cosmo truly remarkable was how Mazda solved the Wankel's infamous apex seal problems, while NSU, the German company that invented the rotary, struggled with seals that wore out prematurely. Mazda's engineers developed special carbon aluminum seals and cooling techniques that dramatically improved durability. They tested over 200 different seal compounds and redesigned the housing ports to reduce seal wear. The Cosmo's chassis was equally innovative for a small manufacturer. The independent rear suspension used trailing arms with a de Dion tube, while the front employed a double wishbone setup, sophisticated configurations typically found on much more expensive European sports cars. The four-wheel disc brakes, inboard at the rear, provided stopping power well beyond contemporary Japanese standards. Road and Track called it the most exciting Japanese car ever built, while Car and Driver praised its smooth, vibration-free power delivery unlike anything from a piston engine. The Cosmo's success at the grueling 84-hour Marathon de la Route at Nürburgring proved both its performance and durability, silencing many critics. Kenichi Yamamoto, who led the rotary engine development team, later revealed how close the project came to failure. "We were told to stop development multiple times. The company was betting its future on technology many experts said would never work reliably. Our team worked nights and weekends for years, knowing that failure meant Mazda might not survive." Number 2, 1963 Corvette Stingray. The 1963 Corvette Stingray wasn't just the most advanced American car of its day. It was a clean-sheet reimagining of what a sports car could be, blending European handling with American muscle in a revolutionary package. Chief Engineer Zora Arkus Duntov didn't just want to improve the Corvette. He wanted to transform it into a world-beating sports car that could compete with anything from Europe. The Stingray's most significant engineering advancement was its chassis. The previous Corvette used an outdated chassis derived from regular Chevrolet sedans, but the 63 introduced a purpose-built ladder frame with 5 crossmembers for unprecedented rigidity. More revolutionary was the independent rear suspension, a first for an American production car, using a transverse leaf spring, control arms, and articulating half shafts that Duntov patented. For 1963 only, the Stingray featured the iconic split rear window, a design element that sacrificed visibility for style. After customer complaints, Duntov won the battle to remove it for 1964, but these split-window coupes are now among the most valuable Corvettes ever made. Under the hood, the Stingray offered engines ranging from a 250-horsepower 327 small block to the legendary fuel-injected 360-horsepower L84. This mechanical fuel injection system was decades ahead of its time, providing precise fuel delivery without the complexity of carburation. The optional Z06 performance package added specialized brakes, suspension, and a larger fuel tank for racing. Road and Track called it the most advanced production car in America, while Car and Driver stated it transformed the sports car landscape overnight. The Stingray dominated SCCA racing, proving its engineering wasn't just for show. What makes the 63 Stingray truly special is how it balanced performance with usability. As Duntov himself noted, we didn't just build a faster Corvette, we built an entirely new kind of American car, one that could compete with Jaguar and Ferrari while still being serviceable at your local Chevrolet dealer. This combination of world-class performance and everyday practicality set the template for Corvettes for decades to come. Number 1. 1961 Jaguar E-Type Lightweight. The 1961 Jaguar E-Type Lightweight stands as perhaps the most perfectly engineered sports car of the 1960s, a competition spec marvel that combined the E-Type's beautiful design with cutting-edge racing technology. Only 12 were built, each representing the absolute pinnacle of Jaguar's engineering prowess. What made the Lightweight special started with its aluminum monocoque construction. While the standard E-Type used steel for its body, the Lightweight employed aerospace-grade aluminum for both the body and engine block, slashing nearly 250 pounds from an already lightweight car. Each body panel was hand-formed by skilled craftsmen, resulting in subtle variations between cars. These weren't mass-produced vehicles but hand-built racing machines. The engine was a masterpiece, a 3.8-liter inline-six with an aluminum block, a wide-angle cylinder head, dry sump lubrication, and Lucas mechanical fuel injection. This combination produced over 300 horsepower and could rev safely to 7,000 RPM, extraordinary figures for the early 1960s. The 5-speed ZF gearbox, replacing Jaguar's standard 4-speed, allowed for closer gear spacing and higher top speeds. The suspension received comprehensive upgrades, including adjustable shock absorbers, stiffer springs, and revised geometry. The braking system featured lightweight calipers and ventilated discs, providing fade-free stopping power even after hours of racing. Every component was either strengthened for durability or lightened for performance with no compromises. Autosport magazine called it the ultimate development of the E-Type concept, while racing car engineering described it as the perfect balance of power, weight, and handling. In competition, the lightweights faced off against Ferrari's legendary 250 GTOs, often beating them despite having smaller engines. What's most impressive about the E-Type Lightweight is how it transformed a road car into a racing car without losing the fundamental brilliance of the original design. As Jaguar's former competition manager later noted, "We didn't redesign the E-Type for racing. We simply realized its full potential. The standard car was so well engineered that it already had the bones of a race winner." So, which of these engineering masterpieces impressed you the most? Would you rather own the revolutionary Citroen DS or the race-bred Corvette Stingray? Let me know in the comments. And here's a controversial question. Were these brilliantly engineered classics actually better cars than their modern counterparts? Sure, today's vehicles have more technology, but have we sacrificed character and innovative thinking for computer-designed efficiency?